So last episode or last week, we gave a quick description on how to figure your total watt hours per day from your devices that you want. If you didn't see that and you want to see that video, click up here at the top and it'll take you back. But anyway, we determined that all our devices, and we came up with a total watt hour per day. And we came up right there with, in this case, I've downscaled it to a very minimalistic view, and I did it for a reason. I want to show that you can get into this really cheap, and why a lot of people do go really minimalistic. It's not right, it's not wrong. It's what you think is best. Anyway, we're going to kind of go and talk in this video about, in this system, a very minimalistic. We're going to use basically one kilowatt per day for 3 days for almost 4, I guess, the way it looks. And how would you right size that scenario, be it 12, 24, or a 48 volt battery system? Which way would you go? And so this is what we want to do in this part. We're going to try to right size your battery bank for cost and for expansion and see which way is the right way, or if it even makes sense to go solar. Okay, first we have a couple of terms we have to understand. Wiring your battery bank in series versus parallel. We kind of touched on it in the earlier video, but this visual will give a little bit better understanding on it. So as you can see here in the top on there, we got a series, and obviously at the far left we have a positive and a negative that will go to your inverter, and in between are our batteries. And notice how they connect from the negative to the positive, negative to the positive, negative to the positive. Only on the far left is positive and the far right goes negative back to your system. That's series. We're combining the voltage. Down here we have series and parallel. This is called two strings. You could have two strings of series, or you can have, in this case, series and parallel. So you'll notice the positive of each string, the top string, is identical to the one up there in series. But what's different about these two strings is the parallel, i.e. we connect the positive on the left to the positive on the lower string. Same on the right. You have your negative going to your negative. So they're series, the top row, they're tied in series, negative to positive, negative to positive. Same in the bottom, negative to positive in between. But at the end of each row, they come into the positive, and on the end of each string, they connect to the negative. That's your parallel connection. There's pros and cons to doing this. One, you can see we double our amperage. Up top we got 12 volts with 100 amps. Down below we have 12 volts, but we got 200 amp hours. So tying a second string in parallel increases your amp hours, i.e. you can double your battery bank. So let's say we build a string like this we right size it for the top scenario, and then we say, hey, you know what? We need more amp hours. You can add a second string. Well, you may ask, how many times can I do this? Most people theorize no more than 4, because you get into a problem of not equal charging on each battery. Most will say 2 strings to be safe. A professional shop will say 2 strings, maybe 4. And the only way you can watch all that is to check each individual cell, check the voltage, check your acid level, etc. Another term we have to realize is on each solar battery, you're going to have a rating. And you'll see it when you look at a Trojan website or any battery website. You'll see this rating in the specifications.
It'll say 5-hour rating, 20-hour rating, and 100-hour rating. Most golf cart deep cycle batteries are rated at 20 hours. So what does that mean to you? Let's say we have, in this scenario, we have a 100 amp hour battery. What that means is you have a fully charged 100 amp hour battery, and in 20 hours that will be zero. Completely depleted, dead. So what's that drawing? That's drawing about a 5 amp load for 20 hours. Same here, if it's a 5-hour battery, it's going to take that 100 amp hours, it's going to draw it down to zero in 5 hours. So how many amps is that? 20. So your rating matters. You'll get in a lot of your high-end 2-volt batteries and they'll be rated at 100. You can do the math there. Got a 100 amp hour battery, 100-hour rating. They're drawing it down at 1 amp hour for 100 hours. So that's some basics that we needed to cover on designing your battery bank.
Okay, there's one other thing we have to point out here. One more term. Actually, it's a formula. We need to relate to Ohm's law, which relates to power law formula. If we look at our system here, 48 volt system, and we look at this number here, which is our total day, 3-day total, with all our coefficients and depth of discharge and everything. This number is actually our wattage. So if we use the power formula, we take, let me move this over here where you can see it. If we take the 48 volts, and this formula says, hey, we need a minimum of 200, if we have a 48 volt system, we need a minimum of 217 amp hours. So we're going to times that by the amps, 217, and roughly 10416. I didn't do the decimal, but 10422, so 10416. So let's clear that. That's for a 48 volt system. Let's go 24 volts, next one down. It says we need 434. We times that by 434. Hey, we get a total capacity of 10,416 watts. Interesting. Let's try 12. 12 volts times 868. Guess what? 10,416. So it's inverse. As the voltage goes down, your amp hours have to go up. We need this number. I don't know about you all, but I'm getting tired of looking at this spreadsheet. Let's get this over with. Wait, this simple spreadsheet could save me money either now or down the road. Let's keep at it. So we've determined for our fridge, that's going to knock out 2/3 of our watts, and the rest is keeping the lights on. The charger, lights. Again, very small system in my opinion for off-grid. But if you just want lights, you got overkill. So let's take a look at this. We've determined the volts and the amps are inverse. They're directly tied to the total wattage of the system. We need that overhead so we don't drag it down because of our draw, our 40%. So with that, let's start looking at the batteries themselves. So we know with a 12 volt system, we're going to need 868 amp hours on that battery. I'm not saying there's not many, there's not a battery out there that will do that. They're just not abundant. And it's supply and demand. You're going to find that the 6-volt batteries are the ones that you're going to probably find the greatest price break on, because most people fall into that area. But let's take a look at it so we understand. So we have the 12-volt system. We need 868 watts. So remember, we could half that. We could have one string at 430 and then maximize it with the second one in parallel to make that 800. But let's go through this. So we look at the 12-volt batteries. On the minimum side, which up here I kind of placed 55 amps as the smallest, all the way up to 240 amp. Well, if you double that 240 amp for a parallel string, we're at 480. We're still at half of what we need. So that's not going to work. So the 12-volt system's out. And for that 435, we have to have 24 volts. So that puts us right here. This 24 volt and the 435. That is one string, 435 amps, 24. So that puts it a cost roughly at $1,400 for that battery bank. The advantage of that is we can double that down the road. Essentially the 48 volt system at 28. So to me, if this is all you wanted, this would be the price break I would be looking at. I have one string, a 435. It meets my requirement, and I can still double the capacity on this. Now, do I think I'm going to be moving into a big house or something down the road? If you think you're going to be going that way, then your whole infrastructure changes, right? Your inverter, everything. So it's kind of important where you want to be, 12, 24, 48. You don't want to have a 24 volt system and then have to head up and go to a 48, right? But if you think this is all you're going to need for 10 years or something, i.e. you're going to have to buy batteries anyway, that's the sweet spot right there, at 1400. Now I'm going to offer this to you. We put in a 3-day runtime. So no generator, we plug it in and everything runs for 3 days. That's our expectations. In reality, will it do it? There's a lot of other factors. No, it's not. It's not. But if my expectations are 2 and I put 3, now I'm ahead of my expectations here and I still can double it. So that's the sweet spot. And if you just keep in mind on your amp hours what you need and the voltage to get that, and then start pricing. If you go for the 2-volt batteries, obviously we can do that because they start at 428. And even if you started at that, you can see the price difference, right? We're up at 2100 for a 12-volt system, and you would need 6 of those batteries, right? And that's about 350, so it comes to 2100. So you're gaining 50 amp hour, not even that, 15 amp hours, but you're going to spend $2,100 versus this 1400. You'll find that typically the 2-volt battery systems are, like the high end. You're getting into when you start stepping into this stuff, I'm not saying there's not a price break. You could find it if you want to go with 2. That would correlate to, pretty close to the same. But more than likely, you're getting more into the commercial, huge battery bank systems, the $100,000 systems. And that's typically where you're going to see this kind of stuff. So most of your stuff will fall in the 6-volt battery. But I did want to show you the 12, if we knocked it down to, let's say 2 days runtime. Could we get close? 2 times 240 you would need for the 12 volt. It's 2 strings, so you'd be at 480. You're still shy. So the 12 volt in my mind, I know there's applications for it, but again, for me, it would be strictly LED lights and nothing with a motor, no refrigerator, no well pump, nothing. I mean, it's just, don't think laptop, don't think TV, don't think monitors, coffee, just fluorescent lights to me. So that's my thinking on it. Again, I'm not any expert, but reflect that. So there's a lot. And it's up to you to make sure that the 12 volts match that amps, 24, that's the big number. Don't max yourself out right out of the get-go and have no room to expand. That's all I'm trying to point out. If you can get one string that will meet your amp hours and leave a second string available so you can throw it in parallel and double your system.